Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Today is April the 27th, 2017. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, in my opinion, the world is mad. Right? Crazy. I thought the line on the Anthony Joshua Klitschko fight, right? We'll say Joshua's name first because he is the champion. I thought the line was ridiculous when I first saw it. Well, now even more money is flowing on Anthony Joshua, right? Keep in mind, I was surprised that Klitschko was the underdog in this fight. And now Joshua is a minus 250 in some books. Right? A lot of the world really believes in this young champion. Now, let me say this to casual sports fans out there who want to make money but aren't sure who to bet on. Right? They're hearing people on both sides of the aisle. They're hearing the argument of young man, unbeaten, versus old guy who lost his last fight and who hasn't been in the ring for over a year. Right, who's fighting on the road. And, you know, their opinion on the fight changes depending on the time of day. And they want to know who to put a bet on. Now, I mean this. If you're betting to make money and not for entertainment purposes, what I want you to do is to take a step back, put down the sports page of your newspaper, right? Go online and look at the current price of Bitcoin, right? I'm more of an altcoin guy myself, but look at the current price of Ethereum. Ethereum Classic. There's a move here in the United States to get an ETF on Ethereum Classic. Dash, my personal favorite. Monero. Privix. Right, you're going to find out that a lot's happening there, and you can make an investment that, quite frankly, in a few months is probably going to be worth more than the money you would have won correctly picking this event, right? Especially if you're thinking of laying 250 to win 100 on Joshua, right? Let me also make another suggestion, right? If you're more of a risk taker, look at the price of silver, which has been depressed. Look at the price of gold and just ask yourself, which has a better historical record? Your local fiat currency, which may not have been around for more than 200 years, or gold and silver, right? Think about your family. Think about making an investment with the money you would have bet on the fight. There are a lot of profit opportunities out there. I love sports betting, but sports betting's just one of them. Also, if you watch my videos, as strident as I am on some plays, as much as I believe in some plays, understand there are people on the other side of the street who believe in an opposite result. Some of you are nodding your heads right now thinking, yeah, I'm one of them. Okay, fine. Always feel free to leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Now, what I have done, this fight is amazing to me because to me the winner is so obvious. But it's equally obvious to others. So what I have done in my favorites here is I have posted the best interview I have found on this fight. And I've watched a few, right? And it's from a guy who prepared a guy in the past to fight Vladimir Klitschko. He's one of the superstar trainers of the sport of boxing, right? This is a guy who, you know, trained David Haye, right? Former heavyweight champion. This is a guy who trained George Groves and other fighters. We're talking about Adam Booth. And Adam Booth, to me, touches on subjects you don't hear in many interviews. Now, Booth is taking Anthony Joshua. Why? Because he has questions on whether Vladimir Klitschko in his 40s is still Vladimir Klitschko. Right? He believes that boxing is a young man's game. Right? The idea is that Vladimir Klitschko might be a little bit past his prime. And here he is in against a young lion. Let me say this. Almost identical reasoning can be found in Freddie Roach's prediction. Right? Roach, superstar trainer like Adam Booth. Right? Manny Pacquiao's trainer. Miguel Cotto's trainer. Right? And Freddie Roach is taking Anthony Joshua. He believes that Joshua is just too young, too fresh. Keep in mind, Freddie's a friend of Vladimir Klitschko's. But he has doubts on whether Vladimir Klitschko is still Vladimir Klitschko. Now, what I want to do here is to just point out that in the Adam Booth video that I've placed in my favorites here, that I encourage everyone to look at, he talks about Anthony Joshua and how he's not Tyson Fury. Right? Not that Tyson Fury's better than Anthony Joshua, but he points out that Tyson Fury fights a different fight style than Anthony Joshua. Right? You can't look at the Fury fight and then say, oh, Joshua's going to be able to go southpaw. Right? Joshua's going to be able to move like Tyson Fury. Right? Booth even points out, too, that Tyson Fury had the height advantage on Vladimir Klitschko. Right? AJ doesn't. So Booth, says, look, AJ is going to have to get to him early. Think about that. He's going to have to get to him early. By the way, Tony Bellew. Right? And you always want to look at who the heavyweights themselves think is going to win. Tony Bellew says that if Joshua doesn't get to him in the first 4 rounds, Joshua could find himself in trouble. Right? Bellew, who's picking Joshua in the fight. Right? Just like Booth, just like Roach, concedes that if Joshua doesn't do damage early in the fight, right? We're talking about the first 4 rounds. That's what Bellew says. Joshua will be in a tough spot. Now, let me say this. The argument on Klitschko being past his prime is that Klitschko, as Deontay Wilder put it, didn't throw a lot of punches against Tyson Fury. Well, let me say this. What I want you to do is to look at Wilder's fight, his last fight, against Gerald Washington. Right? Now, Wilder's a young guy. He's in his early 30s. But you're going to notice for the first 4 rounds of that fight, Wilder, who himself has a lot of early knockouts in the first 4 rounds, doesn't throw his usual number of punches. Right? Now, I'm a guy who believes that off nights are caused by savvy opponents. If your opponent is savvy, wow, you're going to look old, aren't you? Whether or not you're old, right? You could be fresh. You could be in your early 30s, like Deontay Wilder. And you're going to look like you can't pull the trigger. Why? Because your opponent is shrewdly using distance and timing and feints. He's using lateral movement. He's throwing you off your game. Right? Your off night is not because of the calendar. Your off night is because, the guy is just messing you up. He's hurting your timing. Right? He's dumbing down your game. So, there's another group of heavyweights. Right? Let's go back to Wilder. Right? Wilder, heavyweight champion. Unbeaten. Right? Unbeaten. Just like Joshua. Wilder actually says that his heart is for Joshua, but that his mind tells him that Klitschko's going to win the fight. Think about that. His mind tells him Klitschko's going to win the fight. Let me tell you, my heart every year is with the New York Knicks. But hell, I'm gonna bet with my mind I'm gonna take the Golden State Warriors to win the NBA title. Right? I'm sure many of you watching this video have a home team where you love the team. But when it comes time to bet, you're gonna bet with your mind. Deontay Wilder eloquently, diplomatically is telling you he's taking Klitschko in this fight, right? His mind is telling him Klitschko. His mind's the one crunching the numbers, right? Let's go further. Tyson Fury's cousin, Hughie Fury, is friends with Tyson. Hell, Tyson's family. Now, you can imagine if Tyson Fury fought Vladimir Klitschko and then, wins the belt, and then's telling family, man, this brother is spent. His career is over. It's 5 minutes past midnight for him. I felt like I was fighting an old man. He's washed up. Wouldn't Hughie Fury know it? Wouldn't he know it? Wouldn't he hear it from Tyson? Unfiltered, no reporter around? At some family meal where you're just hanging out and, having turkey or whatever. Instead, Fury is taking Vladimir Klitschko. Think about that. Tyson Fury's cousin is taking Vladimir Klitschko in this fight. Let's talk about another heavyweight. Now, I'm always interested in the opinion of guys who go about the sport differently than other guys. Right? To me, on the inside, Luis Ortiz has no peer in the heavyweight division. Right? I personally feel Luis Ortiz would be a tougher opponent for Vladimir Klitschko than Anthony Joshua. And interestingly enough, Luis Ortiz is picking Vladimir Klitschko in this fight. Think about it. Right? I'm just saying that the heavyweights, right? Wilder, Ortiz, Fury, it's interesting that these guys are going with a guy who the casinos have at something like a 2-to-1 underdog. Think about that. Deontay Wilder's mind is telling him to go with the 2-to-1 underdog. Doesn't that tell you that the line is unbalanced? Also, track Tony Bellu's comments about Anthony Joshua. He loves Anthony Joshua, right? Anthony Joshua is really like a brother to him. Bellew calls out a lot of people, right? Bellew called out David Haye, didn't call out Anthony Joshua, even though that fight would have been box office. But yet even Bellew is saying, you know what? If this fight makes it past the fourth round, right? Joshua's going to be in trouble. Folks, the fight's scheduled for 12 rounds. That's not reassuring. In other words, you're watching the fight and it's a slow first round. If you believe Bellew, you're then thinking, wow, Joshua needs to end this fight in the next 9 minutes. Right? Also, let's face it too, he's fighting Vladimir Klitschko, one loss in the last 10 years. Now, what I like with the Adam Booth interview is Adam Booth, the one I've left in my favorites folder here, says that, the experience between these two guys couldn't be more different. Right? Booth just lays it out and says, Vladimir Klitschko in his career has experienced everything you could experience in the ring. Right? He's been knocked down. He's gotten back up. He's been stopped early. Right? He's, lost the title. He's re-won the title. Right? Things like this have happened to him, as Booth puts it, at championship level. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't seen the fight in the last 10 years, right? The last 10 years, where some opponent has come out and roughed up Vladimir Klitschko in the first 4 rounds. Folks, what fight is that? Right? It's very hard to get inside on Vladimir Klitschko because of that jab. I just haven't seen guys run across the ring and even land 2 hard shots on Vladimir Klitschko early that have Klitschko staggering around the ring. Right? I just don't see that. In fact, I see the opposite. I see opponents who have big punches. David Haye, for example. Right? I see guys who have big punches early in fights against Vladimir Klitschko being cautious. Right? They're the ones being cautious. Savvy guys. Guys with high KO percentages. Against Vladimir Klitschko, they're being cautious. Now, you're telling me that a guy who, Adam Booth himself admits, doesn't have anything remotely resembling that level of experience, you're telling me that he's going to be able to throw caution to the wind against Vladimir Klitschko? And he's going to be able to somehow get by Klitschko's jab and his defense to land enough big punches to stop him in the first 4 rounds? Or to even, we'll say, mortally wound him from a sport perspective, right? Hit him, drop him, have him dazed and confused, so by the start of the 5th round, Klitschko barely knows he's in the United Kingdom. He's on his way out. It's just a matter of time. You really think that's going to happen? Is that the blueprint that people think Joshua could follow? To such an extent that they've made him a better than 2-to-1 favorite? Folks, this feels like I'm in the Twilight Zone. Honestly, I don't get it. You know, against Tyson Fury, who Jonathan Banks, Klitschko's own trainer, now admits he thought Klitschko was going to lose the fight before the fight took place. Against Tyson Fury, Klitschko's in there for 12 rounds. Klitschko actually looks to be the better athlete in the 12th round of that fight. He doesn't look spent. He's not holding the top rope and stuff like that. He certainly doesn't look like James DeGale looked the 12th round against Badu Jack. Right? He's completely there. So also in terms of magnitude of the event, right? I know Joshua has fought in front of some crowds, right? Against people like Dominique Brazil, right? And Charles Martin. And I know there was buzz and electricity. I'm not sure if he's ever faced the kind of social pressure he's going to face on fight night against Vladimir Klitschko. But yet Vladimir Klitschko is a guy who faced that kind of social pressure when he fought David Haye, didn't he? Right? Didn't Vladimir Klitschko travel to Russia to fight Alexander Povetkin? You know, let me say this too. There's some fights, the Bryant Jennings fight comes to mind. There's some fights where Vladimir Klitschko clearly looked like he was having a problem with lateral movement. Right? David Haye goes 12 rounds. David Haye uses a lot of lateral movement in that fight. Right? Guys who use lateral movement, Tyson Fury, can go rounds against Vladimir Klitschko. I personally believe Klitschko has a problem with lefties. Corey Sanders stops him. I thought Klitschko was in trouble his first fight against Tony Thompson. I know the judges disagreed, but what I want people to do is to look at that fight, look in Klitschko's corner, listen to Emanuel Stewart. Now understand, Stewart's usually a laid-back guy, right? You know, if his fighter, Hearns, Lennox Lewis, Vladimir Klitschko, if his fighter's doing damage, Vladimir Klitschko, Emanuel Steward was a guy who'd just be in the corner like this, right? The fighter would come back, they'd talk, but no panic. Emanuel Steward's panicked during the first Tony Thompson fight, right? Southpaws do give Klitschko some problems, as do lateral movers, right? Luis Ortiz takes out Brian Jennings from inside the pocket, right? Jennings fought a moving fight against Vladimir Klitschko. He goes the distance. Well, Anthony Joshua doesn't fall into either category. He's not much of a lateral mover, and he's not a southpaw. So you're telling me that he's going to be able to what? Do a right-handed Corey Sanders on Vladimir Klitschko? Come on, man. Who's the right-handed fighter who has even been able to get off a strong right hand on Vladimir Klitschko in the first 2 or 3 rounds of a fight? So, yeah, as I said, the public split on this. Like Deontay Wilder, unbeaten heavyweight champion. Like Luis Ortiz. Like Hughie Fury. In fact, I believe all 3 of those guys are unbeaten, right? I'm going with the underdog here. Right? But understand, the wind in your face is stiff. Right? The champ, Anthony Joshua, is now a minus 250. At some sports books, right? You have people like Adam Booth and Freddie Roach actually questioning whether Vladimir Klitschko is still Vladimir Klitschko, right? And Klitschko has been out of the ring for some period of time. So, if you're on the fence, and if this isn't for entertainment purposes, in other words, I get entertainment gamblers. They're like, hey, I just want some skin in the game so the event can have some more excitement for me, right? If you're not that guy, if you're actually the guy who's thinking, gee, I want to make some money on this. I view this as an investment. If you're thinking rate of return, right? But if you're on the fence, my advice to you is drink some water, which I'm going to do soon. Bitcoin. Think Ethereum. Think Ethereum Classic. Think about the world of financial volatility going on right now. And think about the investments out there, gold, silver, that are better long-term plays than a speculative play on a sporting event where people are all over the page on the event, right? To the boxing hardcore, though, just to be clear here, I'm with Hughie Fury on this. I not only am picking Klitschko to win the fight, I privately feel that Klitschko should do so by KO. Right? I don't even think Joshua is the best heavyweight in the UK. Right? Joshua's looked great in fights. I'm not here to say otherwise. But as longtime viewers know, there's been such a bubble on Joshua lines that I believe the over-under on the Dominique Brazil fight was something like 3.5 rounds. Right? Mike Tyson doesn't come along that often. Let me also say this too, right? And I lived during the Tyson era. That Tyson-Evander Holyfield fight, not the ear-biting fight, but the first fight. Right? Now, I'll agree, that wasn't completely prime Tyson. Right? But didn't he get undressed methodically in that fight after the first 3 rounds? Right? Boxing is a young man's game. But boxing is also the sweet science. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know how to deal with different styles. Let me also say, too, that the heavyweight division is different than every other division, right? The fighters age more slowly at heavyweight. Luis Ortiz is still in his prime, folks. He's now in his later 30s. Right? Vitaly Klitschko, who will be in Vladimir Klitschko's corner, was heavyweight champion much later than you would be a champion at lightweight or welterweight. Right? So, Vladimir Klitschko is in his 40s. I would say he's a well-preserved guy in his 40s. I mean, seriously. When's the last time Vladimir Klitschko was really hit hard and had to hold on to survive a round? How many years has it been? Isn't there a lot of tread left on his tire? And you're going to put him in the ring against a guy who's never made it to, what, the 8th round? Come on, man. Well, anyway, I like Vladimir Klitschko big in this fight. I don't understand the line, but if you're serious about betting on this fight, just know Adam Booth, and I've left the interview in my favorites folder. Adam Booth is picking Joshua. Freddie Roach is picking Joshua. Right? Read an interview of Lennox Lewis, and Lewis was talking about how Joshua reminds him of himself. I don't know who Lennox Lewis is picking in this fight, but let's just say there are a lot of big names in the sport, and I mean big names in the sport, who believe that Joshua is special. Tony Bellew seems to feel that Joshua is going to win this fight in the first 4 rounds, right? As Adam Booth says, at the end of the fight, it's going to be obvious which group was wrong. Let me opine here online that I believe this fight is such that it's going to be obvious which fighter is better by the start of the 3rd round. Right? Anyway, that's how I see it. I like Vladimir Klitschko big here, but he's an underdog. There wasn't a more shocked man in the room when I found out that Vladimir Klitschko was actually the underdog in this fight. Folks, you just don't see that often. And then to have him be this big of an underdog has me completely baffled. Right? This is setting up one hell of a post-fight video. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. I hope you leave your takes in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.